Welcome to episode 59 of the Bass Shed Podcast. My name is Ryan Roberts. What's up, folks? How you doing? On the podcast is Derek Kratzer. Derek Kratzer is the bassist for the group The Steel Wheels. The Steel Wheels have a new record coming out November 5th. The name of that record is Everyone a Song Volume 2. Super cool concept for the record, which is listeners and fans submit ideas to the band and basically commission these songs, and then the band release the record. This is the second iteration of the concept, hence the Volume 2. There's also Everyone a Song Volume 1. In addition to that, there is a podcast kind of explaining a behind the music of each song. Derek will speak to all of this. He'll speak about all this and give us more insight on it. He'll talk about his personal journey as a musician and as a bass player, and how it came to be that he got in the band. Derek is the newest member of the Steel Wheels, and we'll talk about his history with the guys, and how it came to be with his personal journey and being involved in the group. So stick around for that. Trickfishamps.com. I had been playing their single channel preamp, the Minnow. I am now playing their dual channel preamp and AB box, the Trilobite, which I absolutely love. I've been doing a lot of gigs and traveling where I have to do where I'm playing upright and electric. I have a lot of quick changeovers, and having the Trilobite there, just click on the button, boom, the sound's dialed in. It's got two different gain structures. I'll be talking more about that. I should probably shoot a video or something explaining the Trilobite a little bit more, but I absolutely love it. Trickfishamps.com. Trickfish is also now manufacturing Mike Pope's FlexCore preamps. So stop by trickfishamps.com. Use the promo code TheBassShed for 10% off. lemurmusic.com. Everything you need for the double bass can be found at lemurmusic.com. Stop by the website. It's the new website. They're still uploading their inventory on the website. Shoot them an email. If you're looking for something specific, go to lemurmusic.com for everything you need for the double bass. TsunamiCables.com, hands down the best cables on the market with a lifetime warranty. Stop by TsunamiCables.com, check out their product line, check out their custom shop cables, and check out the V15 preamp. Now, until December 17th, they are running a 15% off promotion by using the promo code XMAS21, XMAS21. 15% off everything store-wide at Tsunami Cables, including the V15 preamp. Stop by their website and check it out. All right, as I mentioned, Derek Kratzer is the guest on the show today. Derek is going to speak about how he got involved as a bass player, and it's kind of rare, I think. And maybe it's because of my personal story. Like, I started as an electric player and then went to upright. Derek is started on upright and playing the double bass, and then is now transitioning into electric. He'll speak about that, and he's got a kind of a funny little story about his first education on the double bass. He'll explain that, and then explain about how he had to unlearn some of those things, which it was always just kind of part of the learning process, right? You learn stuff, and then the deeper you get, you realize you got to unlearn some things to learn some new stuff. Yeah, I had a great time talking with Derek. Super chill guy, relaxed guy. Big fan of the record, The Steel Wheels, Volume 2, Everyone a Song, Volume 2. Highly recommend that. I will have links to all that at thebassshed.com/podcast/ Derek Kratzer, DEREK That's how you spell that. There will be links there, so you don't have to spell it. You just click the button. And you can check out the record, and you can check out the podcast that Derek will talk about, explaining some of the behind the music for the songs on that record. And yeah, we're going to take a look behind the music with Derek. Now, he's going to give us some insight about his personal journey and the band, The Steel Wheels. So here's my talk with Derek Kratzer. How you doing, man?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing well. Man, you got an interesting album coming out that I'm curious to learn about. I think this is a really cool concept for a record. Before we jump into that, I want to get to know a little bit about your background as a bass player.
Sounds good. Per se, the album that you're talking about. So I'm with the Steel Wheels, but I didn't actually play on that album.
Okay. Okay. Now, how did that work out? Now, okay. So you just started with them then?
I just started with them last month.
Okay.
I've been around them for a long time. They're my old friends, so I know I know a lot about them, but I didn't play on the album. Just want to let you know that.
Okay, cool. I appreciate the honesty. Let's now have even more questions. This is great. Let's start with you as a bass player. So when did you pick up the bass, and was that your first instrument?
It was my first instrument that I really loved.
Okay.
I started with piano when I was little. That's what my mom started me on, and then I moved from that to saxophone. And then in high school, I think I was in 10th grade. I went to this tiny private school, but we had an orchestra. And that year, both of our bass players had been, or the previous year, they'd both been seniors, and they graduated. And all of a sudden, we had no bass players.
Right.
I was really not that interested in the saxophone anymore. And so the orchestra director said, "Hey, why don't you try this out?" And so I picked it up and started taking lessons.
That is a difficult instrument to just pick up and get going on, especially if there's no, to just hop into. Now you're dealing with the bow, and now you're dealing with left hand position and all that. It could be incredibly frustrating.
It was a lot, and growing up in rural Ohio, just a small farming community, we didn't have any bass teachers there. So I learned my first year from the orchestra director, who was a violinist, and she had never played the bass before either. So she she opened up the probably Essential Elements or whatever book they were using, and she was like, "Okay, well, it says you do this and you do this, so let's both try it." And so it was kind of cool to learn with somebody else who was just learning.
Yeah. Now do you still play upright, or did you switch to electric kind of full time?
I've tried switching to electric, but upright's my main thing.
Okay.
I've actually, that's something that I'm getting into now as the bass player for the Steel Wheels, because the previous bass player, he played a lot of upright when they were kind of doing the bluegrass. They played around, a single mic, and they did the bluegrass kind of thing. But recently in the last 4 or 5 years, whatever, they've kind of switched into more of a rock band. The way they set up the stage, they have drums now. So the previous bass player, Brian Dickel, he switched to playing a lot of electric. And so now coming in as a new bass player, I've been doing that.
Yeah.
But still, the upright is still my main love.
So you're learning with a violin teacher in high school. Now, at what point did you get into like really, really studying the instrument with a bass teacher?
Well, it took a while. I went from the violin teacher to the nearest big town was Worcester, Ohio, and they had the Ohio Light Opera there. And so there was a bass teacher who came from Worcester once a week in my school. And
Worcester?
He was my first. Worcester, Wooster.
Okay.
Little town. There's a College of Worcester there. There's not much else to really speak of. But it's a beautiful little town. But that was my first actual contact with a bass player. I've never met a bass player. I've never actually seen the upright bass played before, except for by other peers.
Yeah.
So my first real bass teacher was probably my second year of college. Peter Spar from University of Virginia.
Okay.
My first real bass teacher. He was great. Amazing.
And then how did that go? Did you have to unlearn a bunch? Did you have to relearn a bunch?
Oh man, he spent so much time having me unlearn how I was using. Like I had this locked wrist, and he would just
for an
hour, I was at that time. That was when I was really getting excited about jazz, and he played jazz with this group from UVA called the Free Bridge Quintet, and so I was really excited about all the things that he was doing. And then for an hour, he would have me just practice my bow, like my wrist movement on my bow, and it was all I could do just to like, I want to learn this bass lick. I want to learn how you improvise. I want to.
And now, did the violin teacher? I noticed how you just mimicked that. For everybody just listening to the audio of this, that was a French grip. So, did your violin teacher have you play French because that's a bow grip she understood better?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And that's what I stayed with.
That's what you stayed with, huh? I feel like French is. I'm a German guy, which out here in LA, there's not a lot of German players. Like it's kind of a French town. From my experience, I'm not deep in the classical game at all. But yeah, French is kind of a main thing.
Yeah, I like the French.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried it. I think I learned on German, and so I stayed with German, and it was just that.
Yeah, I don't think I know anybody who's switched from one bow grip to the next. Like, do you know anybody who's done that?
I know some guys that like own both, but I don't know if they like work on both. Like I think they always, if they're taking a bow to a gig or a session or something, it's going to be their whatever they started with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like once you get it, there's such different motions to me.
Yeah.
Once you get one, it's really hard to feel natural with the other one. I guess if you really want it. But.
Yeah, I mean, there's you learned one, you could learn two in theory, but.
In theory.
But why? But why? There's no like I'm already doing it with this. Like I don't need to just go backtracking.
I'm sure somebody out there has a theory about why you should know both. But
yeah, everybody's got a theory on everything now. So there's definitely one about bow grip. Okay, so you're listening to him play a lot of jazz. Did that get you into jazz also?
Yeah, that's when I really got into jazz. So I started undergrad as I thought I wanted to be a choir teacher.
Okay.
And then after 1 year of kind of going into the schools and trying that out, I knew that's not what I wanted to do. And at the same time, I was getting really, really into bass. Both, I was doing classical at school, but I was also getting really into jazz, listening to all the great jazz bass players.
Sure.
So I hadn't heard any of that in high school or growing up in rural Ohio. Like that's not something.
There's probably. I mean, I can't imagine there's any clubs you can go check out, or there's not really much of a scene.
No.
Yeah.
Zero. So I was into also like folk, jazz, bluegrass, that kind of stuff, and I carried that into college too. And I really liked some of the bass players who were doing kind of jazz bluegrass fusion sorts of things, like Jim Kerwin with the David Grisman Quintet. Got really excited about that.
Yeah, he's been on the podcast. It was cool to talk to him. Yeah,
he was my hero.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
In college.
So what records were you checking out then to get exposed to the jazz? What were some early jazz records where you're like, oh man?
Let's see. I love Money Jungle with Mingus.
Oh, sure. That's such a bizarre record, isn't it? It sounds like he's just rebelling against the other two. Like that's all it sounds like. Duke and Max are kind of locked in, and then Mingus is just this wild card.
That's what I loved about it. But it really worked. And at first I thought it was a really weird pairing to have Ellington and Mingus. But then I just loved the way that they played off each other, and how Mingus, he is kind of the rebel, and he was doing it in musical form, and I just love when people's true character comes through and they're playing.
Yeah,
fun.
I've talked to a lot of like friends about that record, like kind of over the years, and it's either I don't know. There's been like mixed reviews from friends of different instruments. And so one is it's this complete, kind of contrapuntal thing that he was doing against it. The other one is like, he just didn't care and he was kind of sabotaging it. I'm like, maybe all of the above. Like, I don't know, what he was up to.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting if there was any kind of interview about him talking about where he was at with his creative process on that record. If there is, maybe someone can send it to me. I'd be interested to read that.
Yeah, me too. Other ones though, I loved. I mean, Ray Brown,
Sure.
Scott LaFaro or LaFaro, is that
Yeah.
Bill
Like,
Evans,
hmm
Niels Henning, Orsted Peterson
Sure.
playing. Who do
Were
you play
there
with?
some pivotal records by any of those guys that you really locked in with and like, yeah, I want to sound like that?
Yeah. There was nobody that I really tried to emulate. I just loved hearing. Well, so I got into, when you're young and you want to play as many notes as possible.
Sure.
Like I just got really excited about Niels Henning, Orsted Peterson,
Yeah.
what he was able to do. Just as I was becoming more, I don't know, as my playing was improving and my
Yeah.
fingers were becoming more agile and everything, and my intonation and my just everything was coming together for me. I kept wanting the next thing, like the next
Sure.
person that could really impress me. And so that's kind of, I went down that road rather than I don't know, someone like a Charlie Hayden or someone who really played not, who didn't try to play as many notes, but tried to play the right notes or really
Yeah.
complement everybody else. I don't know. Not saying that the people who play lots of notes don't do that too. It's just I was excited about how many notes.
Yeah. Yeah. There's guys that
So that's why I got into
where their technique is such a part of their approach. Whereas guys like Charlie Hayden, who's a perfect example, is just, I don't think he's purposely approaching it with like, what's the least amount what's the most I can say with the least amount, but everything just have so much meaning to it. And there's so much behind every note, in every, where he's placing it in time, like what the note is. There's a lot of detail given to everything, obviously same with Ron. Like Ron puts so much detail into everything where he might not, they aren't the most glamorous lines, but when you look at them and like really listen to them in context, they have even more to say.
Yeah.
Which is
the first time
beautiful.
Yeah, it is beautiful. And the first time I really realized, and I don't know, my thinking about bass changed was with the album that Charlie Hayden did with Pat Metheny, the Missouri Sky.
Is it Beyond the Missouri Sky, man? One of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, such a good album. And I really started to appreciate how he didn't, take up all the space, how he didn't play as many notes as possible. He left space. He I don't know. That's when bass playing kind of started to change for me, thinking about being a bass player.
Have you heard the Metheny record called Rejoicing?
No, I haven't.
I think it was cut in 82 or 83 is when it was released. And it's with Charlie Hayden and Billy Higgins, who I hope I got the drummer right. I'm pretty sure it's Billy Higgins. Then they were the rhythm section for Ornette. And so Metheny wanted to do this kind of like free thing on the record too. So he hired Ornette's guys, and Metheny and Charlie have a tight connect. That was the first record I heard Hayden on, and that was the first Metheny record I heard. That record is, I would say, on par with Beyond the Missouri Sky. It's
you said Rejoicing?
Yeah, Rejoicing. It's a beautiful record. Beautiful record. And it goes some other places. Like Beyond the Missouri Sky is pretty lyrical all the way through, and just a nice lyrical duo record. But this one has some free elements in it, and it's a little bit more rowdy.
Sounds good.
Cool. So this is all through high school and into college. You're getting into jazz. Do you start working in a jazz scene or with some friends? You're playing jazz, you're learning it?
So I went from rural Ohio to a small town in Virginia called Harrisonburg. And there wasn't much seen. Harrisonburg.
Okay.
Which is where the Steel Wheels are based now.
Okay.
So that's where my connection to that band started. But there wasn't much of a scene there. There was a jazz guitarist, Mark Wetzel, who became one of my teachers. He's the first one. He taught a jazz combo at the school I went to called Eastern Mennonite University, and he's the person that I first started playing out with and really becoming comfortable improvising and just kind of practicing all the stuff that I've been learning through Peter Spar. So we would do duo gigs or sometimes with a drummer. And that was my first first experience. Well, one of my first experiences was Pete Spar. He used to play at this club called Miller's in Charlottesville. I don't know if he still does. Great little club down on the main kind of drag there. But he one time had to be late to a gig, and he asked me, and I hadn't been playing jazz for that long. He said, "Hey, can you just come and sit in for half hour? I'll be there soon."
Yeah.
And so I went down there and played with people that he was playing with, also like from the French Quintet, John Durst, and I can't remember the other guys' names, but they're really great players. And here I was, like this bass player who just started. And I was sitting up there trying to play, I think, playing Footsteps, and I didn't like that's a tune that everybody should know. Wait, Footprints.
Footprints, yeah, the Wayne tune. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, of course. Yeah, the Wayne tune.
Yeah.
So Footprints, the guitar player said, "Hey, do you know Footprints?" And I had my real book with me, and I said, and so I turned to it, and I was like trying to play along.
And all the pros are like looking at each other while you're trying to find the page. Like, who's this kid? Yeah.
And luckily, Pete Spark came back after like half an hour, and I got to go. But I was so nervous.
What now? How did you respond to that kind of psychologically and emotionally? Were you scarred from it, or were you like, oh man, yeah, I gotta really up my game because I want to do this and I want to be able to hang?
Well, that kind of thing sometimes can scar me, but in that instance, I was happy that I made it through. Like at times when I was completely lost, I still kind of, use my ear and use my kind of intuition, and I made it through.
Sure.
And so that made me feel good, and I just kept studying with Pete and up my game.
Okay.
So it didn't break me.
Good. I remember I've had some of those moments, like when I was in college and stuff, and I'd go out to these jam sessions and someone would call a tune I didn't know. And there's, looking back on it, I'm not even sure why I didn't know it. I should have totally known it. Just shenanigans, jam session shenanigans would happen, and I'd get a little scarred, and like I wouldn't touch a jam session for like another 8 months or something, because it's just like I didn't want it all.
Yeah.
So those can always go either way, when you have kind of a bad at a young age.
Yeah, I would always when I was young, I would keep playing and just try to keep playing things that I thought would maybe work. But then I started playing with I spent a school year in DC and worked at a little school there, and the school director, Harlan Jones, he and I would play some little gigs. He was a pianist, and he could tell when I got lost. And when I got lost there, he would say, "D, stop playing. It's the music." So he made me keep my place.
So is that where you went? You went to DC then after Harrisonburg?
After Harrisonburg, I spent 1 year in DC, and I took lessons from the principal bassist of the National Symphony. So I thought at that point I was going to really focus on my classical playing. Robert Opelt was my teacher for that year.
Oh man, I have a record of his called The Romantic Double Bass.
Oh yeah.
I love that record.
Yeah, I've heard a little bit. He actually, I don't have it. He was working on it at the time.
Okay.
I haven't heard it.
Yeah, Patitucci's on there playing some classical things with him.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really great record. Really great record.
I add that to my list of ones to.
But I didn't know he was. I don't know. I don't think I read the liner notes on it. Like I found the CD, I don't know, used or something. I don't know. I didn't even know how I got it. But I'm like, I'll check this out. And it's a great record. Great record. His playing is amazing.
He's such an expressive player.
Yeah.
And he was working on that with me. But at that point, my technique wasn't good enough for me to really be an expressive classical player. So I think he got kind of to the end of what he thought he could do with me. And I was just there for a year.
Okay.
And I think he just started teaching that year, just as sort of an outreach thing. He wanted to, I don't know, something give back to the community instead of just playing with the symphony.
Yeah.
So I loved getting to know him, and what he gave me was just he taught me to always play express as much as you can through the instrument at all times.
Yeah. I mean, is that still something you're carrying with you no matter?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
those are
At the end of
just
the
sort
year,
of
he was. Mhm.
musicianship lessons. Those aren't,
Yeah,
they transcend the bass at some point.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely what I took with me. And at the end of the year, he was like, "Look, Derek, whatever way you want to go." And at that point, I was moving towards jazz. And he said, "Just take these musical things that I've taught you and just pour yourself into whatever music you really feel."
Yeah.
He just said those sort of things to me. So I loved getting to know him.
Nice. So then after DC, what's the next stop? Where are you going after DC?
So then I went back and finished school at my little college,
Mhm.
Eastern Mennonite University. And at that point, I got to know, so I'm in the band, the Steel Wheels, and Trent Wagler is the lead singer songwriter. I got to know him all throughout college, and we did some playing together. And in my senior year, I also hooked up with some bluegrass guys, and
Okay.
Eric Rubin, the fiddle player from the Steel Wheels. He was one of those guys that I played with, and we started playing little bluegrass gigs here and there. And the school sent us on a week-long tour to promote the school and play bluegrass in different communities. So I kind of went a bluegrass direction after DC, but I still had my jazz and my classical in my playing, but I got really interested in bluegrass then.
Um, so the Steel Wheels were already the Steel Wheels at this point, or were they just two guys that knew each other that were playing bluegrass, or had the band been kind of solidified?
No, the Steel Wheels didn't start until several years later.
Okay.
Let's see how I can make a long story short. So after college, I got into bluegrass, and then I did like a 6 month around the world travel kind of thing.
Amazing.
I moved to Goshen, Indiana, another really small town,
Okay.
because I'd met Jay Lapp, um, who now is in the Steel Wheels, the mandolin player.
Okay.
I'd met him through a friend, and so I moved out there to start a band with him called the Goldmine Pickers. And the Goldmine Pickers was just kind of a bluegrass instrumentation. And I was a founding member of that band, and we played for a couple of years, or I played with them for a couple of years. And then I left the band and I moved out to Colorado, and then I moved back to Indiana, did grad school. And meanwhile, like right before I moved out to Colorado, Trent was recording his first album. He came out to Indiana, and I sort of was part of Jay meeting Trent, and Trent knew Eric. So we all, during this time in our early 20s, in the early 2000s, we were starting to, that's when kind of the band as it is now, the people got in touch with each other and started meeting up. Trent came out to Indiana and recorded his first album just under his own name. He recorded with Jay, and I played on that. This is about 2005. And then Trent took that album back to Virginia, to Harrisonburg, and then he started the Steel Wheels. I think they came up with the name Steel Wheels like in 2010 or something like that. So they performed for a while just under Trent Wagler. It was Trent and Brian Dickel, the previous bass player, and Eric. They were the original members of the band. And then Jay started coming down, traveling from Indiana to Virginia to play some gigs with them or some tours. And that's when their partnership really started happening, later 2000s.
But you were there. You're kind of you're woven into the fabric of the initial everybody connecting. So it's pretty it's pretty cool that you're back with them now after all these years and reconnecting. And had you stayed in touch with them throughout all this time?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I'd stayed in touch with them the whole time. Listened to all their work, every album that came out. I would listen to the whole thing, and so I know all the music. It's inside me. It's in my ear. I can play. But when I was, well, I'm still learning some of their tunes, but I know them all like internally. It's just a matter of like figuring out the arrangement and the chord changes. And but yeah, it's amazing how having played with everybody in the band except for the drummer Kevin, it's it's just amazing how when you make a musical friendship or music partnership, or you get to know each other musically, that kind of relationship, it doesn't go away. You can just I jump right back in, and it just feels like 20 years ago.
Yeah, like those relationships, I think, are always huge. I mean, I know when choosing guys for a project I'm doing or a gig I'm putting together, it's always dudes who I'm really personally tight with, because that always translates musically.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
I can't think of an instance where like I really locked in with them musically, but we're not that cool off stage. You know, like that's always like the closest I am with them personally, the closer I will be with them musically.
Yeah. It's totally what I've experienced too.
So, I mean, it's great that you get to be in this band with, some of your best friends of 20 years. That's a powerful squad you got there.
Yeah. It's really fun.
Okay. So you leave Indiana to go to Colorado, then you go from Colorado back to Indiana. Now, when you're in Colorado, do you finally get to a big city, or is it still a small town? Are you just like doing small town hopping?
So my experience in DC, where I thought I wanted to move to a big city and be a gigging bass player, and then the big city just kind of was too much for me. It stressed me out. So in Colorado, I lived in Boulder.
Okay.
So that was a pretty big town for me.
Yeah.
But at that time, I kind of left the gigging world, so I didn't. I think I played one or two gigs with a little bluegrass band. But yeah, I kind of left that behind for a while.
Just the working aspect of it.
So, I mean, for 2 years, I worked in a credit union as a bank teller.
Okay.
I felt kind of worn out by the music business and a little disillusioned.
Yeah.
About all of it.
I think that definitely happens. And do you think the academic nature of it was a big part of the burnout, or were you? I got burnt out on the academic part really young. And so like I never finished the degree or anything. But I loved the real working world. I loved like meeting the dudes, going to the sessions, finishing a gig, going to a diner. Like I loved the musician lifestyle and the nature of it all. But the academic thing burnt me out.
Yeah. No. So I think it's kind of the opposite for me. The road and just kind of I don't know, the nature of the music business being everybody trying to be the most impressive or like get the most attention, or I don't know. I got tired of that, and I was still in a phase where I was trying to play the most impressive thing, or I was comparing myself against other people, and that kind of race to be the most impressive or most attention, I realized was not meaningful for me. And being on the road, when you're in a band just starting out and you play all these gigs for nothing, and it's just a really a struggle to make ends meet. So I was working, I was playing in the gold mine pickers, and I was working at a coffee shop, and I was teaching lessons, and I was, I think, working on an organic lettuce farm, and just trying to piece everything together, pull together all kinds of income, and still be available for all the gigs. It just I think that part of it wore me out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just kind of gave it up. Went to Colorado. And
in your personal life, did you give it up too? Were you still practicing? Or was it kind of just you needed a break from all of it?
I needed a break from all of it. I just kind of stopped. I was still listening, and I think that's when I started getting into more singer-songwriters.
Okay. Who are those artists for you?
I can't remember the ones at that time, but the ones that I'm into now, I love Gregory Alan Isakov. I've always loved Iron and Wine, a band that I've known all my life that I love. This duo from Cincinnati, Ohio, over the Rhine.
Okay.
So I really got into that sort of thing, and I was listening a lot, and I picked up the guitar, and Leonard Cohen.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked up the guitar, and I learned how to do a lot of finger style playing.
Okay.
Which is something that I haven't done. I haven't done much writing. I've just kind of been a bass player, not just, but I've been in the background.
Sure. Yeah.
I felt comfortable doing, but if I would start writing, I think it would be on guitar and with finger style. So that period of my life, it was definitely not. Things were happening. I wasn't dormant.
Okay.
I hadn't given it up, but I was kind of moving into a new.
Yeah, just kind of reinventing things a little.
Yeah.
And then how did that translate to getting back to the bass? So you come back to the bass, and you kind of have this history with Robert telling you to pour your soul into every note all the time. And now things have been revitalized for you. You had this little sabbatical where you got to recharge, and you're back in the game. What kind of things were you up to with this new resurgence of inspiration, maybe?
Yeah, well, so I mean, my story has a few other turns. The way I got back into the bass was so out in Colorado. I also did this experience with AmeriCorps, where I went into the schools and started teaching.
Okay.
And I realized that I enjoyed teaching, and so I decided I'd move back to Indiana and I'd go back to grad school, music education. So I did that. I went to Indiana University in Bloomington, and for that I played bass in the orchestras, and so that was my reconnecting with the bass. And I did a degree there in music education, and taught for 6 years here in North Carolina, which is where I live now.
Okay.
At a little school called Emerson Waldorf School. And so I taught orchestra. I was an orchestra director. I went through all the program to learn how to play all the different instruments, violin, viola, cello, bass, so I could teach them all. So that was my next decade, from 30 to 40. And then how I kind of got back into playing was in 2017. I reconnected with Trent. He asked me to come up to Harrisonburg and play with him for there's this brewery up there called Pale Fire that does tribute nights. Trent wanted to do a full set of Leonard Cohen songs.
Oh man, this is right up your alley.
Yeah, and so all the time that I've been listening to singer-songwriters, I got really excited about it, and I put so much this is the first recording project that I'd done in over 12 years or something like that. And so I put everything I had into it, and I loved it. And we played, I think, 10 songs, and then we went on to record 7 of them we call it our band, Indiscriminate Lovers. And we recorded 7 and released them as a little EP and did a 5-day tour. So that was my first entry back in. And then, several years went by. I was still in touch with the band, and sometimes I would go and tag along with them on tours for a few days and be another driver or whatever. And then here in 2021, I think it was April, that's when they called and said, "Hey, Brian's decided to leave the band, and he's going to become an owner and Hudson Dalton Guitars. So it's a really exciting thing for him, but we need a bass player. We'd like you to join."
Okay.
So that's
cool. It's an interesting story because it seems like all the pieces had always been there, and they were just taking this kind of all over the place road to get back, to where they were 20 years ago. There was this element of foreshadowing that's in the story. They're like, all right, everybody's going to go off and do their thing and, branch out, whatever. And then it all comes full circle. I kind of love that.
Yeah. It's really, the band, what those guys did for 15 years is they built up this amazing fan base, this amazing catalog of music. They've been working really hard, and they've been growing and evolving as a band. And so it's really fortunate that I can just kind of, insert myself back in after they've done all this work.
Yeah.
They've built a festival. If you've heard about the Red Wing Roots Festival that I think it's going to be year 8 now or something like that.
Oh, wow. No, I hadn't heard about that.
They started this festival outside of Stanton, Virginia. Started really small, but it's grown every year. And now I think they say they have about 6,000, 6 or 7,000 people that attend. And they bring in some really big name bands. So they've built up so much over the last 15 years. And it's really wonderful to be able to just jump in.
Yeah. And then are you still teaching orchestra?
Yes, I do. So I left that job actually before the pandemic, and then when the pandemic happened, it wiped out the music program at that school.
Yeah, so all music programs at every school. Yeah, and all schools at every school.
Yeah. This year, though, I'm back. I'm back teaching an elective in the high school.
Okay.
I think I have maybe 12 students who've chosen. It's a high school of 50, 55 maybe right now.
The whole school?
So yeah, it's tiny. It's a tiny school. But 12 of them have elected to do orchestra again with me.
That's
so we
cool.
have a little group of 3 cellos, 2 violas, I think 4 violins. And so I go in and teach them a couple times a week.
That's
great.
I
still have a lot of private lessons as well.
Yeah. Do you teach just bass privately?
No. I don't think I have any bass students right now. I have, let's see, some violin students, ukulele, guitar. I've had viola students in the past, cello students.
Okay.
I even have someone that I teach clarinet.
Oh, wow.
Not really something that I know how to play very well, but it's a family where I teach 4 of them.
Yeah.
And they said, can you just kind of try with clarinet?
Okay.
Since I have the program that I did at Indiana University, I also learned all the woodwind, like all the band instruments too. So
sure. Yeah. I mean, you had to go through the methods curriculum, right? And learn all that.
Yeah. I did all that.
I remember being in college and kids, like students and peers of mine back then, doing that. And like for, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks, it would be oboe. And then it would be, something. And everybody's just squawking out the oboe. Well, I mean,
that was the worst one. That was,
I'd be in the practice room, like, sawing away on some etude I'm shedding at the time. And like all around me in the practice room hall is just oboe. I'm like, I'll be happy when oboe week's over.
Yeah, it was the oboe was rough.
Yeah.
The bassoon though was fun.
Huh.
I love the bassoon.
I don't know enough about those instruments. I actually just recorded a record and with a bass clarinet player, and I had to do some research on the instrument, so I could write for it, and I could communicate with this guy properly and understand his instrument. But there's definitely, I don't realize how much I don't know about other instruments until I'm confronted with something where I have to, interface with it and engage with it somehow. Like, I have no idea what you do. Like, man, like I have no idea what you do. I love the sound of that thing, but like, I don't know anything about it.
Yeah. When it's really humbling to have to play that instrument for, 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And just all of a sudden be a beginner and sound terrible. But that's really cool that you do your research to learn something about the instrument when you write about it.
Then I had to ask him, man, I don't even know what writing for. It's difficult. That the bass clarinet has such an extensive range. Like, do you want to read this in bass clef with 8 VA, or do you want me to actually put it in treble? Like, how do you want me to notate this? Because you can get away with a lot on this instrument.
Yeah, it's a beautiful instrument.
It is. So let's hop back to the band now. You're in the band. You joined in April, and they have the Steel Wheels. They have a very cool concept for a record. This record that I saw the tour schedule. There's quite a bit of dates happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we just finished an 11-day tour.
Yeah. With a lot of in October, and then it kind of picks up towards the end of the year. Like, you guys are staying pretty busy.
Mm-hmm. We at the end of the year, we're calming down a bit. Doing a few dates in November, a few dates in December, But September and October we're pretty busy. We're on tour about half the month.
Yeah, that's great. Now, explain to the folks out there in podcast land what the concept for the record is and how that came to be.
Okay, it's a really cool concept and a really cool thing they did. And like I said, I'm not on it, but I've done a little bit of this kind of recording with the band where so it's called Everyone a Song, and Volume 2 is coming out now, and they released Volume 1. I can't remember when they released that, sometime during the pandemic. But when the pandemic happened, Trent's a prolific writer, and and the whole band is just they really wanted to find a way to keep themselves busy, and they have such a strong musical partnership. They just decided they were going to offer to their fan base. Anybody could commission a song. It could be about, and a lot of the songs were for special occasions, like I think one was for a wedding, one was for retirement, or to honor someone who passed away. So there were really, meaningful occasions like that. But then other ones were just like, I just want a song. Here's what I see around me in Kansas. Would you write a song for me? And so it could be anywhere from, those kinds of things. So people started sending in their stories and their observations, and Trent would take all of that and write a song, and then he would send out the guide track to all the guys, and then in each person's home studio, they would record their part, and they would send them to the drummer Kevin, who's in Brooklyn, New York, and he's really good with mixing and mastering and all those sorts of things, and he would put it all together and then present the final product. And it's really incredible just how in tune they are musically with each other, and like things that they would do just independently of each other. They were in different states. Trent and Eric and Brian were in Virginia, Jay's in Michigan, Kevin's in Brooklyn, and they would just send tracks back, and it would all just fit as a beautiful song. And so they put together, I think they said they've done 45 songs over the pandemic, like that. And I can't remember how many songs are on the first album. They chose 10. It kind of worked well as a first album, and there's probably about that many on this upcoming one. So that's, in a nutshell, that's kind of what they've been doing over the pandemic, and they're continuing to do it now too. There are more people commissioning songs.
That's great. And so the title of these two records is Everyone a Song. These are the the one that's coming out on November 5th is Volume 2.
That's correct.
I checked that one out. I haven't heard Volume 1, but I heard Volume 2. I'm into it. I'm really into it, and I kind of did it in reverse order. Like, the management company sent me all this stuff, and so I listened to it first and then went back and read about it, because I wanted to see how I responded to the music with no context, without knowing anything. I just wanted to see what happens, and then I'll read about it. I really liked it, and I remember thinking, like, maybe three or four tunes in, like, where's this guy coming from? Because there's some cohesive stuff to it, but then it was also like, these are all very different, and then when I read about that, it's like crowdsourced material for songs. I'm like, okay, now that makes sense. I wasn't looking for something that wasn't there. Like, I found it, but it was, what I heard exists, was that it was all very kind of separated, because they're coming from people all over the place. I think that's a fascinating idea, to just kind of crowdsource ideas for tunes, specifically during a pandemic where everybody is having these strong reactions, and depending on where they are in the nation, like, I know LA, there was rioting at one point, that wasn't really related to the pandemic, but that just added a whole other layer to it. And 2020 was just a crazy year in general. And so what people could have submitted could have been some heavy things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there were pretty heavy things. And so like you, I heard the first album without any context. I didn't, since I wasn't in the band at that point, this is 2020 sometime, I heard it and I was like, yeah, I mean, all those songs seem very specific to somebody else. It doesn't feel like it fits together like a normal Steel Wheels album. So at first I was like, I kind of like it and kind of, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And then I listened to it more. I love Trent's songwriting, and so I was drawn into all of it. But in a way, it sort of felt like it was still somebody else's song, not really mine. And what really brought me into it and got me to love it was listening to the podcast. Have you heard about the podcast? There's a podcast that goes along with it. So they decided to make with the local radio station there, I think WNRN. They decided to record interviews with the people who commissioned the songs.
Oh, I love this idea, like a behind the music. Yeah,
it's totally behind the music, and all these things that, like these specific references that you heard in the songs, that I heard in the songs, that I didn't really understand. All of a sudden, they're meaningful because the person will say, "Well, yeah, this song. I told Trent how I like to run through Strawberry Canyon, or I like there's a song talked about coffee and hot chocolate, or like these little things that I didn't understand and didn't mean anything to me when I first heard the album. All of a sudden, they're like, "Oh yeah, now I remember that story that someone told on the podcast about what they like about their spouse." So the podcast, it's really cool. It's just, it gives you the story of the song, and it's also cool because Trent and Eric and the different members of the band will talk about the experience of sending the song to somebody or receiving the song from Trent, or what they first thought when they heard it and what they ended up trying out with the fiddle part or the mandolin part. So just the process, learning about the process of how it happened. It's really, 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 really fun. So that podcast is like the story behind the song. That podcast is amazing.
Is the that's for both volumes? Is the volume 1 and 2 of Everyone a Song?
Yeah, the podcast is called "We Made You a Song."
We made you a song.
Yeah, all of the songs of volume 1 came out in the first season, and for volume 2, I think 1 or 2 have come out, and I actually haven't listened to those yet.
Okay,
but they're coming out as individually.
Nice. Well, you're out there touring. How's the music been received when you're doing something?
Received really well. Yeah. It's right now, touring and playing is such a strange experience because a lot of places, everybody's masked, and you think it seems like they like that song. I'm not 100% sure. But then afterwards, people who feel comfortable staying around and talking, they've really enjoyed what we're putting out. So nice. Far, it sounds like it's being well received.
I've most of this year I've been doing like some travel days just up the West Coast with the group I play with. And I remember, I don't know when this was, maybe September or October of 2020. I was playing this outdoor concert in San Francisco, and it was a parking lot concert. So the big stage, like, whatever. I forgot how big the group was, 6 or 7 piece thing. But it's a parking lot. Everybody had to stay in their cars. And so everybody's either everybody's either like flashing the headlights or like doing the horn. It was the most bizarre experience because like you don't know. Like it feels like you're just playing to nobody. And then all of a sudden, some Corolla 50 yards away is honking its horn at you. Like, this is so bizarre.
Oh, that's crazy. I haven't done that.
Thankfully, like venues have opened up, and there's actually people visible now. So that's a win. Yeah. How have venues been? Are they requiring that all of the artists show proof of vaccination? Are they more lenient about it. I know I was up in San Francisco again a few weeks ago, and like you had to show your Vax card to do anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's been a tricky thing to navigate right now. There's some, traveling from state to state. I think different states have different requirements or recommendations about that. Different venues have even different counties. So it's been tricky, and I don't deal with this directly. I think Kevin and Eric and some of the guys are dealing with this kind of correspondence every day. But what we're doing is we require as a band either proof of vaccination or proof of a negative test.
Sure.
And some places that's been received well, and some places it hasn't. We've had some people really, really thankful that we do that, and they come out to the show because of it. And we've had some people that get frustrated with it, and they don't come out to the show. And there's recently in Ohio, I think we had 50 tickets refunded because the vaccination or negative test was an after the fact thing, and they bought tickets and they didn't want to comply with it, or they didn't feel comfortable. So they're the numbers in the venues, the audiences are smaller than pre-pandemic.
Yeah,
still, but people are still coming out, and I think a lot of people do really appreciate knowing that everybody in the venue is either vaccinated or negative test.
Sure. I mean, it's a nice peace of mind, and I think it's. Ultimately, I'm glad that not only because as a musician, I'm happy that live music is back because that's my job, but that it's just being, it's back into the world, that's happening, and people can go experience that if that's how they like to choose to spend their free time. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that that's an option, and it's funny that the vaccination thing is so divisive. It's there's enough podcasts released about that. I don't need to talk about that.
It is just sad that it's so divisive.
It's just it kind of that element is so divisive that can stop people from enjoying music. If you just look at the 1-to-1 ratio of artists creating for something, for the public, that there's that layer of complication in that. I think that part sucks.
Yeah, it does. The one night there were complications with all of that. The show we were going to play in Illinois, and so we ended up canceling the show, and we did a live stream.
Okay.
And we set up everything in someone's living room, actually in Jay's father's living room, and played a full show.
Nice.
And I think we had like 300 people.
That's great.
It was going to be a lot less than that at the show, but a bunch of people tuned in. So it was nice to be able to give people an option where we didn't say anything like you have to be vaccinated to tune into a live stream. It was nice to just be here's our music.
Yeah, take the complication out of it. Yes.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Where's the main spot that folks can go to check out the new record? Is it on all the streaming situations?
On all the streaming situations. Steelwheels.com has all of our merch. If you like physical CDs, and I think it's coming out on vinyl. I think we're doing everything on vinyl now.
Nice.
So everything is out there on all the streaming platforms.
Cool.
We're playing some shows in Virginia coming up, and then some shows in North Carolina and Tennessee December. So if anybody's in the Southeast and wants to come out to a show, and you either have vaccination or negative test, please come out and enjoy the music.
Tickets available on the band website?
Yep, band website. We'll link you to the to tickets.
Yeah, cool. The latest record is Everyone a Song, Volume 2. Highly recommend checking that out. Derek, thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the conversation.
All right. That was my talk with Derek Kratzer. Early instruction with the violin player. That's that had me thinking. While he was talking about that story, I was curious about like maybe guys that start off on electric and start studying with a guitar player. I wonder how much of that they have to go back and kind of relearn technique, maybe right hand position or something like that. Left hand position, I could assume would translate similar from guitar to the electric bass. I don't know. I've never studied with a guitar player. But I'm always curious about those things, and that it got me thinking about that while he was telling me about his early instruction with a violin teacher. I like also that he spoke so openly about just kind of getting burnt out on it. That is a real thing. That is a real thing. I know I've talked to other guests about that and how to avoid that or what to do when it just happens. This is a very real thing, and I was happy that he spoke very openly about that. I highly recommend everybody check out The Steel Wheels, Everyone a Song, Volume 2 and Volume 1. I will have links up to that on the website, thebasshed.com/podcast/ Derek Kratzer. As well as the episodes of the podcast he spoke of, giving a behind the look on the songs, a behind the music, look at the songs, and having the band interviewing the people that submitted the songs and things like that. I'll have all that up at the Bass Shed. If you are enjoying the Bass Shed podcast, please hit subscribe wherever you are listening to it. You can also find me at facebook.com/The Bass Shed, Instagram at The Bass Shed, Twitter at Bass Shed, and I think that's it. I think that's the only socials I'm on for the moment. All right, that's what I got, folks. Thanks for listening, and I will catch you on the next one.